you're putting out a lot of information now on social media, on TikTok. What's like the most viral kind of post or topic you've covered so far, or something that you've seen the most engagement with?
So viral and engagement. So I think my first viral video was one where I talked about how carotenoids can change your skin color. So with carotenoids, they're the pigments that make a lot of fruits and vegetables the color that they are. So beta carotene makes carrots orange, and lycopene makes tomatoes red. And there is a whole spectrum of carotenoids. And the cool thing about carotenoids is that when you consume them, we accumulate them in the fat underneath our skin, and it can change the color of our skin. And it's subtle, but that subtle change in color makes a huge difference in terms of how healthy you appear to other people. And there's a lot of literature on this where they apply these transformations to look at more or less carotenoid colored images, and people find carotenoid colored images of people regardless of the ethnicity or regardless of the race of the person in the picture or the person perceiving the images. They find carotenoid color to be more attractive. And this is really fascinating because it's almost as if we're displaying the richness of our diet on our skin, like a trophy to others.
I love that.
Like the wealth of our diets is apparent on our skin. And you can sort of see it sometimes when someone has a poor diet, their skin looks a little pale, a little sickly. And that's a real thing. And so people really resonated with that. And I've seen a lot of people post about eating carrots, and carrots aren't extremely high in beta carotene, and also that beta carotene isn't particularly bioavailable, especially if they're not cooked. But plenty of other foods have carotenoids too. It's not just carrots. So it's sweet potatoes, it's tomatoes, and I take carotenoid supplements. So that's what I was talking about in that video: is high dose carotenoids, more than you could get in a normal diet to get a really noticeable change in skin color. But that was my first viral video. So it was my 8th video that I posted, and it got a really good response. Yeah.
Those are fat soluble, right? So do you take those supplements with a meal? Is that how someone would do it?
That's correct. And that's a good point, because I've seen a lot of supplements that try to use the doses that I talked about and make them into a pill, but they're in dry capsules, which has questionable absorption. So I take them in liquid soft gels that are filled with oil. So the carotenoids are dissolved in oil, and then I consume that always with a meal to get the right absorption. And so one side effect of carotenoid consumption a lot of times is that it will turn your stool red. And
which can stress some people out.
It stresses some people out. It's benign. It doesn't harm you. But one thing that I've noticed just talking to so many hundreds of people after I made this viral video about it is that often the people who have red stool are the ones who say that the carotenoids aren't changing their color. And I think it's because it's passing. And a lot of times I talk to these people and they weren't taking it with food, or they were taking like a dry capsule with powder and not an oil-filled gel cap. And I think that is important.
This episode is proudly brought to you by 38 Terra. Try 38 Terra's DMN prebiotic, the science-based daily multivitamin for your gut microbes, a simple and delicious way to take your gut health to the next level. Now back in stock in new and improved packaging for customers living in the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Get 10% off your DMN at 38terra.com using the code THEPROOF. That's 38terra.com and use the coupon code THEPROOF for 10% off. That reminds me, once I consumed an obscene amount of beetroots and I called my mom. I was like, I think I have cancer.
That'll turn your
something's wrong. I was in my
color.
I was in my 20s. Is there a dose if someone was to supplement with carotenoids that would be advisable, recommended? And is there like a particular carotenoid, or are you just what are you looking for on the label?
Yeah. So I think the dose, what I did is I just sort of titrated up. So I started with a lower dose and I worked my way up, and I waited, months in between. So it was a long process just to see where I noticed the most skin color change and where it kind of plateaued, where I took more and it didn't give me any more color to my skin. And
what was the low dose that you started at, and then what did you end up at?
So I've been taking 12 milligrams of astaxanthin for years. And so that was kind of the baseline, but then I added 20 milligrams of lycopene. I increased that to 50 milligrams of lycopene. Now I'm taking 12 milligrams of 12 milligrams of astaxanthin and 50 milligrams of lycopene daily.
With a meal.
With a meal. And I take those at separate times. So to increase absorption, because there's potentially a limit to how much carotenoids you can absorb at once. So splitting them up as much as possible is helpful.
Is that just to make you more attractive? You are very attractive.
It's all the carotenoids. You should have seen it before carotenoids.
Like, is this supplement protocol just to increase attractiveness? Not that there's anything wrong with that, or is there also an element of like protection from the sun when you're doing that?
So that's a great point, and something we talked about before. The carotenoids also protect your skin from the sun, and I think this is super underappreciated because although carotenoids, and not just carotenoids, but there's other antioxidants that when taken orally can protect your skin from the sun. I think that they're underrated because this protection can't wash off, right? So I wear sunscreen every day. It's an absolute must in a skincare routine. I'm sure we're going to get to skincare routine later. But the problem is, like, I have a UV camera. If I put the UV camera on my face, I put the sunscreen on, I give a good wipe, there's a line of missing sunscreen. You know what I mean? You can wipe it off so easy. And it wears off during the day. And it's not always possible to just keep reapplying so frequently. You don't notice when you're rubbing your nose or something and you get some protection. So I think we're already supporting the idea that you should be using like clothing as protection. And then in addition to that, sunscreen. So like the sunscreen is like kind of the backup to the wide brim hat and the protective clothing. I think we need to be considering this as like a 3-layer system. You know what I mean? We need to be wearing our protective clothing. We need to be avoiding the sun in peak hours, things like that. We need to be wearing sunscreen, and we need to be thinking about our diet and supplementation as another factor, because this protection can't wear off. It lasts all day long. Even when you wipe your sunscreen off, you want that. It's not super potent, but it is some amount of protection that is indefeatable. And I really appreciate that.
That's interesting. So most carotenoids would come in through the diet through plant foods, not exclusively though. There are some carotenoids in certain seafoods, like astaxanthin is found in shrimp, right?
Astaxanthin, there are multiple carotenoids in shellfish, canthaxanthin, astaxanthin, and I believe others, but we can get an appreciable amount. That's in the shell of the animal, mostly. And so we can get appreciable amounts in salmon, not the amount that we're getting in a supplement though.